Mefo, the deputy editor-in-chief in charge of the English desk of Equinoxe television and radio, arrested and thrown into the Douala Central Prison. Lawyers have described her arrest and detention as illegal, based on unfounded facts. This is a special edition of the program consecrated to what is today known as the Mimi Mefo affair. We're going to take a critical look at what is happening to our own Mimi Mefo and, of course, other journalists in Cameroon who have been arrested and detained. A wind of terror blowing on the press in Cameroon. Stay with us and discover our guest. We are receiving two guests in this edition of the program. First, Elie Smith, a veteran journalist and a member of the civil society, and ABDULKARIM, Muslim scholar of the Christian Bible, equally a member of the civil society in the Republic of Cameroon. Elie Smith, we're talking about fellow journalist who has been arrested and detained at the Douala Central Prison. You've been following up the story. What's your take on this matter?
My take on this matter is that the government acted stupidly, as they have always done. If an attempt to intimidate pressmen and women, and for that matter she is a woman, from reporting objectively on what is happening in the northwest and southwest regions. And I think what they have to understand is that we as a professional body, we will not be intimidated. We shall continue reporting accurately. So I think, and then the other problem is Mimi Mefo is first of all a lady. She's a role model to many other young women who want to go into this profession. She's simply the best Cameroonian journalist, French or English speaking, that we have on the block today. So I think what the government did is not correct. But the good thing I have is that Agbobala told me that when he met with her yesterday, she was in a different mood, which means that when she comes out, she will continue doing what she has been doing.
Right. ABDULKARIM Ali, you are a Muslim scholar of the Christian Bible and a member of the civil society. When you heard about this issue, and you've equally been following up what has been happening since Mimi Mefo, deputy editor-in-chief of Equinoxe radio and television in charge of the English desk, was arrested or was summoned to the Littoral Gendarmerie Legion here in Douala, questioned for over 8 hours, and later transferred to the military court, and then finally ended up in the Douala Central Prison. How did you receive this news?
Well, let me begin by praising God and ask Him to send His blessings upon His messengers and prophets, and to everyone, to Mr. Smith and yourself, and of course to our dear sister Mimi Mefo. We are all Mimi Mefo. Southern Cameroon is Mimi Mefo, and the world at large is Mimi Mefo today. Yeah, pertaining to the question, it's very disheartening, but it's not a surprise to me actually. Following the trend of what has been going on to Southern Cameroonians, especially in the last 2 years, it didn't come as a surprise. Do not forget, a senior justice, an aged man, Ayapo, was simply arrested by this government, taken to Yaoundé, kept there for 8 months without giving him any reason for that abduction. We have senior barrister Bala and other colleagues like Bobga, Tasang, who were invited by the government to constitute a body to dialogue with at the inception of this Anglophone crisis. They dialogued with them for 2 days. On the 3rd day, they disbanded and named them terrorists and took them, because the proposed federation, they proposed, not that they imposed, the proposed federation as a way to this. So you see, besides, I won't call it just targeting the press women and men, which of course that is, but in a larger scale is targeting the Southern Cameroonians. They want to kill the voices. Why do I say so? Because the double standard is horrible. We have a young man called, whether it's a young man or an old man, I don't know really, but he's called Obama Enes. I hope you know him, being your colleague. This guy came on Vision 4, called all Southern Cameroonians rats, and he incited genocide. He said the government is joking. The government should come with full arms and deal with us, and we'll stop the nonsense. And the government yielded to that is prior to the killings. He made this statement. We have an administrator administering for this government in the Southern Cameroon. His name is Okala Bilai. He calls Southern Cameroonian parents and children dogs. These are all documented facts. Not even a word of rebuke to all of them. But this is a woman who reports an incident. And I'm not a journalist, I'm not a lawyer, but I'm a debater. In theology, we study a lot of debate. Citing a scholar or citing a source is a very genuine way of argument. That post says source, CNA. CNA is not an ambiguous body. It is a body that is registered and recognized, some sort of an authority for the press. She said that is her source. And if anybody thinks...
Another one, she cited the family of the...
Yeah, if anybody thinks it's a lie, why don't you go to Bamboo where it happened? Tell the people that nothing will happen to you if you speak honestly. Do what you call in journalism, is it vox pop? What do you do on the street? Ask the people, where did the bullets come from?
All right,
and they'll tell you. So it's a shame that such a thing is happening, but it's no surprise.
We'll take a listen to the lead counsel of the lead defense counsel of Mimi Mefo, Barrister Tamfu Richard, who explains everything that happened on the night of November 7, 2018 from the Little Gendarmerie Legion in Bonanjo, Douala, through the military court right up to the Douala Central Prison.
We were at the Legion in Bonanjo to respond or to answer to a convocation which Mimi was served with from the commander in second there. When we reached his office, he briefly read to all the charges that Mimi's investigations was required. And from those charges, we were able to picture out section 240 of the penal code, which is tagged as fake, false news. So he read Mimi's Facebook page, wherein she published a news with respect to the death of the American missionary, which she said probably has been caused by fire exchanges between the Republican Army and the secessionist group, and that probably the bullet came from the military, from the Cameroon military. And she indicated the source of her information. We went further with her interrogation on the other alleged charge, wherein they say that she had published 10 pictures with respect to the Bambili incident, which has been liked and disliked by people and shared by people. She recognized the post and said it was not by her wish that those likes were being made or it was being shared. So at that instance, we could only gather two offenses: false news and cyber criminality, which we all know that they are competent before the civil courts. The investigation was closed around 4 p.m. They said they were typing their statements. We were all surprised. Why that emergency? Well, we said, well, if we have to wait, no problem. Around 6, the colonel brought to us a form that Mimi has to sign, and that form was her police custody. We objected to it and said, no, it is not called for. We said, no, the offenses for which Mimi Mefo is being investigated for or suspected to have been committed clearly provides that she can be granted bail under sections 117 of the Criminal Procedure Code. So we refused on that, and they went and they were brainstorming and came back, said, we have to meet the military state prosecutor. We were surprised around 8 that we have to go and meet the military state prosecutor. We wanted to know why were we to meet him. The offenses for which Mimi is being tried have no military connotation. They insisted, and we discovered that probably it's because the file came from the military tribunal and that they had to report to him the circumstances of the investigation. We said, okay, there was no problem going to him. When we arrived, the military state prosecutor, we were kept at his secretariat, and we have to insist that we want to meet him. He was surprised to even know that we were coming, meaning that everything already was planned. When we reached his office, the tune of the offenses that we came with changed, and they started saying that Mimi is being charged for acts of terrorism, or being charged under the terrorism law, that Mimi Mefo has caused, or her information has caused, injury to the integrity of the state. We're all surprised with those new facts just coming in. And we tried to buttress all the legal arguments and even the international treaties that Cameroon has ratified, all was falling on deaf ears. We understood that things are getting worse, and at around 10:30 p.m., we saw an escort of around 4 heavily armed gendarmes who came to handcuff her to drive her to the New Bell prison. As a lawyer, I am really very confused because I don't understand the evidence against Mimi Mefo that warrants her appearance before the military tribunal. In the file, we were not able to see any direct evidence for a civilian like her, who is not a military personnel, to be tried before the military court. They informed us that she will appear in court on Monday, and we shall remain to support her in the defense. Her trial are illegal, on illegal allegations. They have not had sufficient elements to warrant her custody. We were not presented with such. She gave an information and she provided the source. They will leave the source and they attack her. So if this is not an attack maybe to English-speaking journalists, how will I coin it? So to me, I think they are not enabling the press to freely exercise its duties. Then what else of a normal citizen of the society? We believe that there is a very gross violations of some fundamental rights which are even enshrined in our constitution. Freedom of speech. We have ratified international conventions which today they want to make me believe as a lawyer that Cameroon is not a state of law, because I, who is even speaking today, I don't know if I won't be arrested.
You're welcome back. Elie Smith, a veteran journalist. You listen to Barrister Tamfu Richard, and he qualified Mimi Mefo's arrest and detention as illegal.
Yes, when a legal mind, he has all the qualities, the specificities, the science of the terminologies used. He masters. When he says that it was illegal, who am I to say it is not? Now, like a journalist, like a person that I know very well, a person who is very respectful, Mimi Mefo is very hardworking. So that's something that I feel so bad. You know, I was speaking off record, but I don't know if I quote him, it will be wrong. He was telling me something a while ago which I had not seen. When you compare Mimi Mefo with other female journalists in Cameroon, Mimi Mefo doesn't come on screen to sell herself, market herself. Mimi Mefo comes, she's selfless, it's just to deliver the news. And that's how a journalist should be. That's why I so admire this lady to a point that I felt so bad when I learned that she was arrested. But she knew it. You know, it's just like, I had a similar case, you know, like when you want to die, you have a feeling that you are going to die. People around you don't, but you know that, look, I am not going to survive 2018. Because she used to tell me that she was under intense pressure, and I told her that this thing is similar to what I've always had. You know, in this team, your TV, I was arrested here, and I knew it when I was coming, because when I came, I met a lot of policemen around. But on that day, the man who arrested me, Mr. Esogo, he's a good man, because I was not molested, he did nothing. He respects the canon of, he is a man who respects human rights, Mr. Esogo. But Miss Mimi knew that because she was under intense pressure. And that's why I think other female journalists should learn from Mimi Mefo. When you are coming on set, you are not coming to show us how beautiful you are. She is selfless, she's just there to do the news. Go on the ground. How many other female journalists in this on TV have been able to go down to the southwest, to the northwest, deliver the information she's doing?
She's one of the few female courageous,
she's simply the best,
determined and daring journalists. We've seen her on the field, to the imbatable, right up to the residence of the divisional officer who was abducted. We've seen her in Balangi and many parts of the Anglophone regions of the country. Now, looking at what she's been accused of, propagation of fake news, the information she published, she sourced that information. She quoted the source of that information. So when we look at it from a journalistic perspective, where is the crime?
There's no crime. There is no crime. There's no crime. I think that if the authorities of Cameroon were like, let's say in the United States, they will kill everybody. Did you see the exchange that Mr. Donald Trump had with Jim Acosta of CNN? Did you see it? If it was in Cameroon, I think Jim would have been maybe dismembered like the Saudi government did to Khashoggi. But I don't see any crime. She quoted a source. Now the problem, I think the government has a problem. I don't know who are the advisors of the government of Cameroon. An incident has happened. If I were the government, what I would do is that I will leave that Bambui land open to call all the Cameroonian journalists, go to Bambui, investigate. And when you carry out the investigation, you have the truth. For example, I went to Mweli. Mweli is after small Munyenge trouble, a small village there, right? When you go there, you have it is a part controlled by ADF forces, the Ambazonian Defense Force. They control, they have their court, they have their prison, whatever, they do things there. And there I met people who told me the atrocities that the Ambazonian Defense Forces are doing, and that they leave, they carry out forceful marriages and things. Those are true facts. Now, if anybody thinks that it's not true, and the Amazonian guys, they are not there, but they say, okay, you know, we in the ADF, they did not tell them that, Elie, you are a criminal, okay, Elie, you are banned from coming here. You see the difference? They told me, all right, it is true, this thing can happen, but, well, we don't really think, but we think that, look at this is our code of conduct. If such a thing happens, this is how we do. We are investigating, and should we discover that what you said it is true, we are going to punish those concerned, because it is not the first time we have done that. We have expelled people who are not living or who do not accommodate themselves to our way of doing things. Now, with the case of the government of Cameroon, a lady, a journalist, reports and quotes a source. If I were the government, what I would do is, all right, I would say, okay, let me take other journalists and let's go there. And that's why I told G.T. Bajek, the spokesman of the Cameroon army, you send journalists. Okay, Mimi Mefo wrote this. Well, maybe Mimi Mefo is wrong. You, journalists of Le Jour, Nouvelle Expression, Cameroon Tribune, Equinoxe, I'll take you there, not embedded. Allow them to go to Bambui, conduct their own interview. It is going to be good. And it doesn't.
The national chairman of the Social Democratic Front, John Fuli, in his reaction to Mimi Mefo's arrest and detention, said, or asked the question, why is it that the government is not going against or is not looking for the source quoted, but is looking for the person who published the information, attacking the person who published the information, and not the source quoted?
No, it's simply because the government for so long, what the government of Cameroon wants to do, and sadly there are some so-called journalists who support them, is that they want to commit a crime without a witness. Mimi Mefo is not the first time. They have been planning this for so long, so they just wanted an opportunity to nail her down. It's not by chance. It's not as if it's just because of that. The problem of this government is that they don't want accurate reporting. What they want are praise singers, those who accept whatever thing they say. Right. It's not good for them, because if you want to solve a problem, allow Ali to contradict me. If I cannot allow Ali to say, Elie, you are wrong here, then where are we going to?
ABDULKARIM Ali, another charge against Mefo is indicates that what she published constitutes an attack on state body and state servants or public servants, so to speak. Where is the attack? Can you locate an attack on the state in the information Mimi published?
Before I answer the question, you know, the last time Mimi interviewed me, I think it's the one before this one, that is about 2 months ago or last month. When she sent the invite, she also said, Scholar Ali, pray for me. I'm being killed and I cannot feel free, especially in the evenings. When I asked, being killed by who? She says she doesn't know, but there are spies everywhere. So this has, like Elie says, this has been happening for at least 6 months. And they coming out to your questions, they come to tie to this thing. Because you see, they use one post, indications, fake news and cyber criminality. The criminality is that she's attacking the state. But again, This is a report. She made a report. She quoted source. What you do is that, as a government, and this woman has no track of criminal activities. She's not a criminal. In other words, she's not been found guilty in other criminal acts. What you do is...
All the same, she was arrested, and you know, when she was being taken out of the military court in Bonanjo, she had handcuffs on her hands like a criminal.
All right. No, I'm saying prior to these charges, she doesn't have any record of criminality. In other words, she's not been in jails or cells as a criminal, if at all she's been in jail or in any cell.
She was treated like one, as if she was a criminal.
The point I'm trying to make, you're treating someone who comes before trial the very first time like a hardened criminal. That's the point I'm trying to make. Before this, she didn't have this record. So what the government should have done, if common sense, you say the government has investigators, it be lawyers or secret service. They investigate if Mimi is wrong. If it's a fair government, if Mimi is wrong, even quoting that source, there's something in your profession called corregino. Is that the term?
Corregino.
To correct yourself until a journalist fails to correct themselves after being clarified that what they published was wrong. That is when the journalist becomes faulty. Corregino is a process in journalism that makes you a proper journalist after having spread maybe or published false news. You correct yourself. It's well done, I think. They didn't do that. From what the lead counsel explained, they took this woman, kept her for 4 hours first time, and then they exercised a part of the law which gives her the right to stay quiet while they asked what was going on. Nothing happened. And then from there, it was sent to the military tribunal. And the argument was, but this is a civil matter. Why take it there? No answers. From the civil tribunal, they sat there, waited for whoever they are supposed to see for 1 hour, 2 hours, and then he came out and said, don't worry, I'll see you soon. He didn't see them for another 1 hour. And then the next thing they saw were armed men coming to a woman who has respected a government invitation, what you call a convocation, a summons. She respected it. She is there with you. You come with armed men and then you cuff her. Mimi Mefo, by my judgment, is not just a role model. This woman is an inspirator for both women and men. We didn't know the kind of award she's had internationally. We don't respect her, just like nobody respected Joseph, but he became the governor in Egypt. Nobody respects Mimi in this government. What we should be doing to such a woman is putting medals around her neck, not cuffs.
And between the Littoral Gendarmerie Legion and the military court, other charges came up that were not mentioned in the summons, notably charges linked to terrorism and infringement on state security. These are some of the charges that were raised to justify the fact that they had to take her to Newgate.
Hence I said I'm not surprised. It was applied on Bala, it was applied on Justice Aya. The point is Southern Cameroonians are being targeted. Look, I just mentioned Obama Ernest, and we have many Francophone journalists who come on air and speak whatever they want. Not a single rebuke. Besides, maybe we have McCarthy. We have Ernest McCarthy, who is it, Ernest? Yeah.
He has been in jail
for 8 months without telling him what he did. So, look, they needed a reason. But let me tell you, in my estimation, what happened. All those drama in that gendarmerie and in that court was nothing. They were just waiting for a call in Yaoundé. So the call came, throw her in jail, and that's what they did. And this is what all Southern Cameroonians must come clear to it. This is what brought me to the position that I am today. I believe in education. We Southern Cameroonians, we believe in education. Not as a tool to make money, but something to make you a critical thinker, to solve problems. You just have education builds you to solve your problems. Think critically. And this is what Anglo-Saxonism has given us. And nobody can take this away. Now Mimi is a moderate voice. Now I'm saying this on air. The last time Mimi interviewed me, that is about a month ago. I met Elie Smith, had a program just minutes after. So we met just here. Myself, Elie Smith, and Mimi. Both of them were telling me, Mr. Ali, you people who believe in religion, pray for peace, pray for unity. And I left. So if you now lock up such voices, which I find very moderate, those who clamor for the restoration of the independence of Southern Cameroon, what do you want them to do? to speak the same language as Mimi, to speak the same language as Elie, when after they speak it, you frame them up and jail them. So I would say, okay, now, why don't you term me as a real terrorist and jail me? Instead of playing any minima anymore. That's what I would say Mimi have been doing, trying to bring a balance. And with this her case, it beats my imagination. What kind of world we live in? This woman quotes a source. This is what baffles me. Because now, if Elie Smith has a PhD, has a doctorate on journalism, he writes books on journalism, and then universities certify these books and we use them to teach our children. I don't need to go and dig the things that is already discovered. What I do is I quote him. And if in future some science of journalism comes to prove that his theory was wrong, how does that make me wrong? When an authority had written it and I quoted. So I'm asking this issue, so we shouldn't quote the Bible. We shouldn't quote anything if journalists cannot quote sources. But I hear this government quoting Cheruma Bakari on his, what he call the statement. He couldn't even spell her name correctly. Check what he wrote on that statement, her last name. Tokum was it?
Takambu.
Takambu with O-U, right?
Yes.
Check his spelling.
All right, gentlemen, we're going to take interviews of the week. Right now, since the arrest and detention of Mimi Mefo, calls for her liberation have been streaming in from all quarters at home and abroad. Political actors, journalists, members of the civil society, and even on the internet, there has been what can be qualified as an aggressive campaign calling for her liberation. Take a listen to these reactions.
Incarceration of Mimi Mefo is what I've condemned with all my heart in the strongest terms, because this harassment on journalists, especially at a time like this, that journalists should go out and do investigative journalism to educate and sensitize and let the people know what is going on around them, is what the government is trying to block, because they have so many things to hide.
Every journalist, every reporter, every media person is very sad about the recent developments concerning the practice of journalism in the country. Be them Anglophones or Francophones, or journalists wherever in the world, is a setback for democracy.
I think it's an unfortunate incident. It has saddened all of us who are in this profession. And we don't know why all this is happening, especially against the press, since this crisis in the two English-speaking regions of the country started. You know how many journalists have been locked up, arrested, detained in very difficult conditions.
It's heartening to learn that a journalist has been detained for the simple fact that he or she has published this or that information. This constitutes a threat to the liberty of expression, which is a fundamental human right. The Cameroon law is clear. When somebody publishes information which is wrong, the same person should use the same media that he used in publishing the false information to publish what is correct. So I think instead of incarcerating,
press freedom in Cameroon today has been totally reduced to nothing.
Talking about Mimi Mefo's case, who is like a mentor and elder to me and a renowned journalist, this issue that came up at around 11 p.m. really shocked me, because I remember November 2 was being celebrated, the International Day to End Impunity and crimes committed against journalists.
Journalists are not enemies, journalists are not criminals, journalists are professionals.
She should not be taken to the slaughter, because if you look back, all the work that she's doing, at least she's a professional, she has been recognized at different levels for her professionalism.
You know, remember this girl had a Grand Prix. Having this Grand Prix means that she was doing just her job. If something was out of her job, that prize wouldn't have been given. So please, for the sake of this prize that has been given to this girl, let her be free. We are begging the government, Let this girl be free.
You're welcome back. Elie Smith, you've been working in this field for so many years. You've been working across Cameroun as a journalist, across Africa and even beyond as a journalist. When you look at what is happening to Mimi Mefo today, what is happening to journalists in Cameroon today, how do you see the future of journalists in this country?
No, but I think I've been walking around. For example, this looks like what happened in Congo, Brazzaville. In Congo, I have a colleague who got killed in his house. They came around, pour fuel around the house, set it ablaze. His name is Bruno Osebi Jacquet. His wife got burned and 2 children. Osebi got burned, not terminally. They killed him at the hospital at the PM Obengo military hospital in Brazzaville. So I know that then in all dictatorial regimes, I've been saying it here every time and people tell me, no, why are you saying this thing? I've been saying something. There are 2 sorts of democracies. There is a democracy which is an elective one, which is ours, whereby we know that after 7 years, the father of the nation, someone told me that yesterday, will have 71%, sometimes 99%. You know, sometimes they compete among themselves. Oh, I had 71. You had 91. So you should, a la Soviet. Then there is another democracy called liberal democracy, which is not in terms of ideology. In a liberal democracy, you have alternation of power. You have free speech, which means that Mimi Mefo in a liberal democracy wouldn't have been arrested. Then you have protection of minorities, and I think that's where, for example, Ali is saying about the people of Southern Cameroon. So, do we fall in that mold? No, we fall in the first one, which is an elected democracy. An elected democracy is a totalitarian regime, does a democracy to please France and the United States. In reality, it is not doing it. But I think it is good for journalism. Any real journalist would like to be in such a place, because a real journalist is not a journalist who sits and reads the news, who sits and reads what someone tells him, or who goes and covers a visit of a minister or the president. A real journalist is that person who goes on the ground and investigates and reports accurately. And that's Mimi is that type of journalist. That's why I think it is going to still be an inspiration. And I think he said it. Most people will listen or watch at what Mimi has done, and they would like to do like Mimi. And which means that yes, there is a future for journalism in the country. But the idea behind the government's mind is that they want to beat everybody into submission, intimidate people from carrying out the investigation or reporting accurately.
And some newspaper reports interpreted what is happening to Mimi Mefo and other journalists as a deliberate attempt to completely muzzle the press. And some even went further to say that the government of this country is imposing a wind of terror on journalists.
It is true. And before going forward to that, I want to commend the owner of this TV station, Mr. Severin Chunke. Because if Chunke was like the other owners of the private press, he would have thrown Mimi Mefo under the bus immediately. That's what others do. The problem in Cameroon is that we don't have the free. We have a relative freedom of press, because if you want to compare it to Congo Brazzaville or to Equatorial Guinea, in Equatorial Guinea they don't have any free press, but they export free press out of Equatorial Guinea. They finance newspapers in France, in media houses in Cameroon, to churn out their own brand of soft power. Now, and then here, relative to Congo, well, we can express ourselves, but I think the government now says, no, why do we allow that portion of freedom to go? Now let's just finish it once and for all. It is a reign of terror. Because the thing is, he who dictates who pays the piper, dictates the tune. And what we have today is we are in a situation whereby the government has a sledgehammer on media owners. And that's why I want to commend your boss, or the owner of this channel, who has the courage to stand by Mimi. If it were others, like where I came from, my boss did not defend me one single instant. He just threw me away and said, okay, please, I don't want to have any problems. It is a reign of terror, and I want to commend Mr. Severin Chunke for that. Now, what other newspapers have done is also correct, but what I want also to tell Cameroonian journalists, stop being informant of the regime. It is not as though you cannot talk to a man of the regime. You can talk. We are not. It's good, you know. Politicians and journalists, right? They're like good bedfellows. One feeds on the others. It is a good thing. But the problem we have, like what Mimi used to have, I don't. And at a point in time, I will give those names because I think it's good to name and shame. If you have a colleague who is jealous of another one because she is popular and goes around lying that Mimi Mefo is a covert person of the Amazonian. For Christ's sake, no. A good journalist, they say in journalism, if he doesn't bleed, he doesn't lead. And that's what she was doing, reporting on what is happening, accuracy. And what the government wants to do now is to stop it, but the government is not going to succeed. I'm happy that all newspapers in Cameroon, for once, have come out to defend Mimi Mefo. We should not forget that we have Benedict McCarthy in jail, we have Conrad C., we have even BBT Mancho,
Thomas Awa.
We have Thomas Awa, and look at the cruelty with what the way they are treating Thomas Awa. You know, Thomas Awa is already insane. I saw him at the military prison in a normal government, for Christ's sake. Thomas Awa, who is now gone gaga, would have been freed and taken to a psychiatric hospital. A government that respects itself. If a government is a the new election of Biya, if I were Mr. Biya, I would not want to get elected and then the next day I have a tag of being Ben Salman, because it is just one way shot of doing what the Saudi Arabians did to Mr. Khashoggi. And look at what is happening to Saudi Arabia today. Saudi Arabia is getting a rebuke that they have never had such. And the other day, Boris Johnson even said it to them that until you look for the killers of Mr. Khashoggi, Jamal, you will be treated as they have been treating Iran. It's the same thing today, the government of Cameroon. The people around the international community look at the government of Cameroon as a rogue regime, that whatever thing they say, nobody gives them any concern, simply because they know this lady quoted a source, quoted the family, but do they know what is happening in the United States as we speak right now? So I think the government should try to give themselves some modicum of respect, some decency, and I think it will be a good thing for them to release Mimi Mefo and then compensate Mimi Mefo for what they have done to Mimi Mefo.
Right, ABDULKARIM Ali, what can possibly explain this wind of terror blowing on the Cameroonian press, as some have described it? What can explain what some have even qualified as an attack on Mimi Mefo and other journalists in Cameroon?
Well, two things: Southern Cameroon and international pressure. Cameroon has never paid attention to journalists. I'm sure you guys would recognize that this much, at least not as much as they've paid attention to journalists, especially Southern Cameroonian journalists, for the past 2.5 years. So that is it. It's the Southern Cameroon issue and pressure. With Mimi, like we are trying to analyze, she's been trained for a while, but the last straw that would have broken the camel's back in her case is the international pressure that came upon the assassination of Charles Truman. Because Americans, like Elie's quoting bin Salman and the United States, he thought he had United States back. But with this journalist, it starts with a newspaper. You know, here in Cameroon, the newspaper is what we use in time puff. But in America, in the West, that is where it starts. So newspapers reported about Charles Truman. Don't forget, his brother is a senator in Indiana. People reported it. And then some of them quoted sources that are coming from journalists here. So that is it. They want to kill the voice. But I say this is penny wise, pound foolish. And it plays well to me because it has done two things. It has proven Southern Cameroonians 100% correct upon oppression by this regime and this government. Secondly, when hard times come, that's when you know exactly who your friends are. I didn't know Mimi Mefo was this popular. I don't know if how good you guys are with the social media. But please, the whole world, journalists who don't know Mimi Mefo, have gone to her profile, studied her, and they are making reports about that. You'll be surprised that the kind of portfolio and profile that international journalists have produced for Mimi, you didn't know. Because it seems she's not a very loud type. She doesn't expose her achievements. So there might be some that you guys in Equinoxe don't know. So it has done two things. The woman has had a red feather by this government, and then it is making a strong case against them. You know, I say, look, this is a divine, I think I would say it's a divine providence. I don't understand how this government shifts from one apt blunder to another, from one big mistake to another big mistake, digging big holes in a long way to close a small one. And this they have done with this woman. You know, in Islam, if two people committed a crime, same crime, trust me, and one of them is a male and the other one is a female, immediately, because that one is female, a lot of consensus start coming in. We treat women, I said in Islam, I'm not saying Muslims, in Islam, we treat women with a lot of respect. You see in the Bible, let me quote this, John, a woman to Jesus, that she's adultery. Jesus did not debate whether she's done it or not. This was his argument. He went on the floor and he started writing. And then he says, each of you which is without sin, cast out the floor. All of them were sinful. The woman probably also did it. But what does the law say? The law says that the adulterer and the adulteress should be stoned to death. That is in the book of Deuteronomy. So, after that, he looks up and no one is there. He said, is there no one left to condemn you to death? She says, no. He said, neither do I condemn you. But this is what he says. Go and sin no more. This is a woman. This is the provision even your Bible gives. I'm shocked that this country is overwhelmingly a Christian country. But when it comes to law, they don't apply any spirit of the law, and exactly the reason Jesus Christ came. Jesus Christ, in my understanding of the Bible, was a magistrate, an honest and just magistrate amidst unjust magistrates, scribes and Pharisees. They were interpreting the same law. Jesus Christ didn't change the law of Moses, but he was interpreting the law by the Spirit, and these guys were looking at the letter. So Jesus Christ makes very strong statement. It doesn't mean he has changed the law. He says you were told in the past that adultery is a sin, but today I tell you that if thou lust after a woman, you've committed adultery in thine heart. But then he asks a very pertinent question about the Sabbath, when they complain that one man has done something on Sabbath and they want to put this man to death. He said, if your lamb fell in a pit, would you not pick it up because it's Sabbath? What is he doing? Trying to put out the spirit of the law. This country, when it comes to Southern Cameroonians, let me finish, Babila. When it comes to Southern Cameroonians, it is law by the letter. When it comes to Francophones, it is law by the spirit and everything they can apply. You see all sort of logic coming in. You see Obama Enes, look at Vision Card, who provided a false news about a president's demise. Not even a word of rebuke. This is not a word of the Minister of Communication, the boss of communication, had said many things and changed them and nobody speaks. This woman, no, I challenge any single Cameroonian, and the time would come that would prove that the military did not kill Chastron. You've not done that, and she's in jail.
And talking about the respect of the law throughout the time from when the hearing started, from when she was being questioned at the Little Gendarmerie Legion, right up to when she was thrown into the walls of the Douala Central Prison. The lawyers, about 11 of them, by including senior lawyers like Barrister Ashu Emmanuel and Barrister Alice Com, and many of them who were, they kept wondering, asking, but what is a civil case doing in a military court? Looking at the charges that were highlighted in the summon, cyber criminality and propagation of fake news. And the law provides that these are cases that should be handled or judged in a civilian court, but the case is in a military court. What can possibly explain this deliberate intention, as some have described, deliberate intention to keep aside the law and do things the other way?
All right, so the Quran says, Summun, Bukumun, Umyun, Fahum la yarji'un. This is Arabic. It says, the deaf, the dumb, and the blind, they do not see, neither do they understand. And Jesus Christ makes the same statement in the Bible. He says, seeing the see not, knowing the know not, neither do they understand. Look, this is God trying to show the real face of La Republic de Cameroon. La République du Cameroun is a military state. They should stop pretending. This is why Mimi was taken to a military court. This is why Bala was taken to a military court. Not even in the southwest or in the northwest, but all the way to Yaoundé, breaking every law that you can imagine. But if you ask these government's lawyers, they will bring for you text and interpret it upside down, side down, up, and explain to you how it's justifiable that Mimi be tried in a military court. What I have to say to especially common law lawyers, please drop the profession, come. I have an IT institute, or better still, come and study theology. Common law has no place in this country. It has been proven beyond doubt. 200 of them were there for Bala. None of their argument was valid. A battery of them went to defend OC and yeah, I'm talking about OC because these were common law lawyers. Went to defend OC for cancellation of what they call election. So look at these arguments. You don't need rocket science. Look at the arguments they brought, that there is a wing of this country that did not vote. And they brought other arguments like the Prime Minister voted away from where he registered. They brought all these arguments and all of them were dropped and dismissed. What does this tell you? It means that common law has no place. It means that you're wasting your time. It means that this government, its military, understands the law better than the lawyers. So again, we are throwing water on the deck's back. My plea is that what I want to plead to all civil society activists like myself and others and organs that are writing, we have to be careful. This government is very wicked. Let's be careful with what we write and the kind of things we say so that we don't add already more venom on what Mimi is going through. You see, Elie just made mention that we have even colleagues that will now follow your news out of jealousy and envy, go back and tell hierarchy or call the government that you are affiliated to Ambazonia or something like that. So let's be careful the kind of document you bring out so that they don't use it more to incriminate her. They'll say, okay, no, you see, she was tied to this and that. We have to pray. We have to pray and pray hard because a lawyer was explaining to me that the law provides that during investigation, they can keep you for 12 months, 6 months, and 6 months renewable. For what? And that is the game. But I think
that's what is happening to Makati.
I think inshallah, this woman, you know, I won't speak for Makati a lot. I don't really know his case. But Mimi's case is that which is very visible to everyone to see. This woman doesn't really deserve this. It's really so disturbing that a government would treat a lady like this, throwing her, whether it's waiting trial or it's jail proper, at midnight with cuffs instead of putting a medal for this hard work. This is the very first time that the government is charging her. I mean, let's assume Mimi even made a mistake. Let's assume that report is wrong, totally wrong. Let's assume she quoted no source. Is this the best this government can do to a woman that has delivered for such a country? This government should be looking for scholarships for Mimi. This government should be calling diplomats for Mimi to address. This government should be taking Mimi to universities abroad for her to address these people. This is what the West do with their products. The West even goes that far to identify our best, those who come out with high grades here and give them scholarships, give them nationality. But look at what we do with us. This woman, you know, if I didn't go to school with Mimi, but I don't think she's a very intelligent woman. She is a hard worker. She is that kind of person who will read all night because she wants to present a 5-line news. She's that kind of person. When you see her, when you look at her carefully, the way she dresses, the way she speaks, she's not glamorous. It means that she sits and takes her time. She studies hard. When she comes for that news that takes 30 minutes, it's all of her day that she's prepared for. This is not what this government should be giving her, honestly.
All right, ABDULKARIM Ali, Elie Smith, talking about Mimi Mefo. We're going to show our televiewers and tell them exactly who is Mimi Mefo, and we equally show you some of the things she has been doing, some of the daring reports. She has been doing some of the daring reports. She has been doing some of the daring investigations she has been doing on the ground in the following special story. The Mimi Mefo affair sparks widespread condemnation of intimidation of journalists in Cameroon. Private newspapers decry what lawyers have qualified as illegal arrest and detention of Mimi Mefo, Deputy Editor-in-Chief in charge of the English desk of Equinoxe Radio and Television, and other journalists. Mimi Mefo is detained on 2-count charges: propagation of false information and contempt of public bodies and public servants, charges described by lawyers and the press as unfounded. The Guardian Post tells its readers all about the Mimi Mefo affair. Le Jour puts forth the question, why Mimi Mefo? And Le du Sahel says Mimi Mefo should not be in the Douala Central Prison. On its front page, La Nouvelle Expression newspaper qualifies her arrest and detention at the Douala Central Prison as an attempt to muzzle the press. Le Messager says the regime is imposing terror on the press, and in the same vein, Mutation highlights a wind of terror blowing across the media landscape in Cameroon. Emergence reports that press freedom is in danger in Cameroon. The state newspaper Cameroon Tribune is silent on the arrest and detention of Mimi Mefo and other Cameroonian journalists. Meantime, Le Quotidien de l'Économie reports the ongoing mobilization for the liberation of Mimi Mefo.
The international press has diverted its attention to Cameroon regarding the incarceration of Equinoxe television journalist Mimi Mefo, editor-in-chief of the English service, Wednesday night at the New Bell Central Prison Douala. Some foreign media invoke gross violation of human rights and freedom of expression by journalists in Cameroon. They have reported severally on the unlawful arrest and detention of Mimi Mefo since her convocation at the Bonanjo Gendarmerie Legion Douala. BBC News in Pidgin tells Mimi Mefo freedom of speech still lies far away from Cameroon. The Citizen reports Mimi Mefo's detention for attacking state security as part of crackdown on journalists reporting on the Anglophone crisis. Same as Agence France Presse, Le Monde, RFI, African News, TV Segment, Jeune Afrique, to mention but a few, have connected themselves with the battery of lawyers who have rallied behind the English-speaking journalists for a release. Reporters Without Boundary, in a statement, demand immediate freedom to be granted Mimi Mefo, the brave journalist professionally covering the Anglophone crisis. The Anglophone crisis, the non-governmental organization emphasizes, is not a crime.
That night, we talked to some local inhabitants who made us to understand that security forces were behind the burning of houses here in Balangi, but we could not independently verify the veracity of this information.
The Center for Human Rights and Democracy in Africa, in its outing, condemns vigorously Mimi Mefo's arbitrary arrest and detention and demand her unconditional release. Before the reaction of the human rights group, the European Union branch in Cameroon had pledged its support to Mimi Mefo, awaited at the Douala Military Tribunal, Monday, November 12, 2018.
For Equinoxe Television from Balangi, we are Amos Fongo, Eric Masianjomo, and Mimi Mefo.
Just like any other big event in the country, the arrest of Equinoxe TV and Radio's English text editor-in-chief, Mimi Mefo Takambu, spread like wildfire on the social media, with most of the reactions coming from her colleagues. The general call was for her to be released immediately. It's saying that journalism isn't a crime. Others describe the day as a sad one for journalism, while some reactions call for the solidarity to see her being set free. This other post says journalists are not criminals, while another says if Yaoundé is strong today, the future is pregnant with surprises, and urged the power that be free Mimi Mefo. Another urges Paul Biya to free Mimi Mefo, while another reaction simply says if Cameroon is auctioned, there will be no buyer.
Mimi Mefo Takambo was born in Bafoussam, West Region of Cameroon in 1988. She attended secondary and high school in Balinyonga, Northwest Region of the country. Mimi Mefo's journey to her position of journalist par excellence began in 2011 when she secured a Bachelor of Science in Journalism and Mass Communication from the renowned Department of Journalism and Mass Communication, University of Buea, Cameroon. After a show of excellence on High TV Buea, Mimi Mefo won her way into Equinoxe Radio and Television in 2012. Mefo's untamed journalism and communication skills exploded on Equinoxe Radio and Television. She proved herself unbeatable in television and radio presentation, anchoring news editions like the 6 a.m., midday, 7 p.m. and 9 p.m. on Equinoxe Radio, as well as the 7 a.m., 9 a.m., midday, 4 a.m. and the 6 p.m. newscast on Equinoxe Television, where she made her mark. As a reporter, Mimi Mefo stands amongst the few most daring and most courageous female journalists in Cameroon. She has been to places like Batibo, Balinyonga, Moyoka and Ekona, considered by many as a death trap in the heart of the deepening Anglophone crisis.
On the 6th of May 2018, dozens of houses were set ablaze in Balangi, in Bongé subdivision of Meme, southwest region of Cameroon.
Award-winning journalist Mimi Mefo has been recognized with international and national awards. In 2016, she won the Best Video Investigator Award of Africa Phony. The Rising Force, Mimi Mefo, won the Best English Female Journalist Award of Fokako in 2017. In the same year, Mimi Mefo won the Scoop Media Award as the Best Female Journalist of the Year in Cameroon. As if not enough, in October this year, 2018, Mimi Mefo was named Journal Hero by the Committee to Protect Journalists. Though the resilient Mimi Mefo is in a Nubel prison, her journalism career is far from hitting the bottom.
We are actually at the private residence of the DO, whose whereabouts up to now remains unknown. Local administrative authorities as well as security forces have been devising means, multiplying search as well as investigations to uncover his whereabouts ever since his disappearance on the 11th of February 2018. It should be noted, as you can see, we are actually at his private residence. This is the outdoor toilet of the divisional officer for Batibo in the northwest region of Cameroon. We are actually there. Security forces that are equally here on the ground guarding the properties of the divisional officer whose whereabouts up to now remains unknown. We can see that the area has been practically abandoned. His families that were left behind, their whereabouts is unknown. This is the kitchen, the outdoor kitchen of the DO that went missing on the 11th of February 2018. We can see how the kitchen as well has been abandoned. That is the atmosphere here in Batibo of the northwest region of Cameroon, where search has continued to intensify. We can see that is the building, the backdoor building of the residence of the DO. We see how the windows and the walls of the building are practically dilapidated. We can see that the house has been abandoned since the incident occurred, despite the fact that a new DO was appointed by local administrative authorities. We are having information that is actually not resident here in Batibo of the northwest region of Cameroon. This is another view of the house of the DO for Batibo in the northwest region of Cameroon. Local authorities, security forces are there guarding the area. We could only find security forces. We could not find a soul in this area. It is, of course, a no-go area for the population, a no-go area for people, except for local administrative authorities. The senior divisional officer for Momo division in the northwest region of Cameroon was actually here to assure the population as well as security forces that they should multiply the search following the disappearance as well of the delegate of social affairs in the northwest region of Cameroon. We can see how vehicles are parked here. We would be taking our televiewers to the front of the house of the DO. This is how the house has so far been abandoned. Inside we can see the blinds, the chairs. We can see the chairs that were practically abandoned by the family of the missing DO. Up to now, his whereabouts is unknown, and local administrative authorities have indicated that they are multiplying investigations as far as the situation is concerned. We are on special assignment in Batibo, Momo division of the northwest region of Cameroon. We are Marcian Jomo, Innocent Abega and Mimi Mefo for Equinoxe Television. This is a corner in Moyoka subdivision, Fako division of the southwest region of Cameroun, which was before now a very busy locality, which is a ghost of its former self. Many business premises have simply been deserted. We can see how business premises are simply closed down. Microfinance institutions, banks are not functioning. Local inhabitants have deserted their homes. We visited several homes. We were unable to see families, children, women, fathers that have escaped to nearby bushes where they are seeking refuge.
Equinoxe is situated just 5 kilometers from Boya, but the atmosphere here is completely different from what prevails in the Southwest Regional Headquarters and neighboring Moyoka in Fako Division.
Reporting from Television News, we are Amos Fongo, Eric Masianjomo, and Mimi Mefo.
The people in this deserted village were not sure to tell their stories, but the picture on the ground speaks volumes of the devastating consequences of the Anglophone crisis in this locality.
On the 6th of May 2018, dozens of houses were set ablaze in Balangi, in Bonge subdivision of Meme, southwest region of Cameroun. This is the aftermath of what occurred. As we can see, this is one of the most visited areas. It was a popular drinking spot here in Balangi. You can see how bottles have been shattered here on the floor as a result of the fire disaster that took place that night. We talked to some local inhabitants who made us to understand that security forces were behind the burning of houses here in Balangi, but we could not independently verify the veracity of this information.
On the site of the incinerated structures were burnt household items and other valuables. Most of these roadside structures, which are now in ruins, were business premises and home to dozens whose whereabouts is now unknown. We approached some of the doors, knocked, but no one answered.
This is one of the private residences here in Balangi. We can see that it's been practically deserted. The doors are practically closed and it's almost nightfall. Nobody's here. We can knock and nobody's here to open the doors. And if we keep moving, we'll see that it's a similar scenario almost all over. We cannot tell where the people are or where they actually escaped to, but it's obvious that the chaotic atmosphere pushed them out of their houses here in Balangi. This is actually the atmosphere. Several houses, even those that have been rented by tenants, have simply been deserted. This is Balangi.
And we left Balangi without speaking to a single individual.
We see that Balangi has been simply abandoned by local inhabitants here. Not even a single soul could be spotted. A few that we saw moving about, not even up to 5 of them, could not tell us what is exactly pushing the people to flee this locality of the southwest region of Cameroun. Balangi is now a ghost of its former self. Several houses deserted. No business is moving on here. We cannot see business premises open here because of the chaotic atmosphere that is reigning now in the southwest region of the country. We can see houses have been abandoned. We equally have information that mothers, kids, as well as young girls and young boys are now seeking refuge in some interior localities and in bushes. We could only see some living souls like animals, like this car that we can see here in Balangi that has simply been abandoned by its owners. We could equally see fowls here in Balangi. It is a chaotic atmosphere. This is the picture of Balangi few hours to the May 20th celebration in the southwest region of the country. For Equinoxe Television from Balangi, Bonge subdivision, Meme, southwest region of Cameroun, we are Amos Fongo, Eric Masianjomo, and Mimi Mefo.
The people in this deserted village were not sure to tell their stories, but the picture on the ground speaks volumes of the devastating consequences of the Anglophone crisis in this locality.
On the 6th of May 2018, dozens of houses were set ablaze in Balangi, in Bonge subdivision of Meme, southwest region of Cameroun. This is the aftermath of what occurred. As we can see, this is one of the most visited areas. It was a popular drinking spot here in Balangi. We can see how bottles have been shattered here on the floor as a result of the fire disaster that took place that night, we talked to some local inhabitants who made us to understand that security forces were behind the burning of houses here in Balangi, but we could not independently verify the veracity of this information. On the site of the incinerated structures were burnt household items and other valuables. Most of these roadside structures, which are now in ruins, were business premises and home to dozens whose whereabouts is now unknown. We approached some of the doors, knocked, but no one answered. This is one of the private residences here in Balangi. We can see that it's been practically deserted. The doors are practically closed and it's almost nightfall. Nobody's here. We can knock and nobody's here to open the doors. And if we keep moving, we'll see that it's a similar scenario almost all over. We cannot tell where the people are or where they actually escaped to. But it's obvious that the chaotic atmosphere pushed them out of their houses here in Balangi. This is actually the atmosphere. Several houses, even those that have been rented by tenants, have simply been deserted. This is Balangi. And we left Balangi without speaking to a single individual. We see that Balangi has been simply abandoned by local inhabitants here. Not even a single soul could be spotted. A few that we saw moving about, not even up to 5 of them, could not tell us what is exactly pushing the people to flee this locality of the southwest region of Cameroon. Balangi is now a ghost of its former self. Several houses deserted. No business is moving on here. We cannot see business premises open here because of the chaotic atmosphere that is reigning now in the southwest region of the country. We can see houses have been abandoned. We equally have information that mothers, kids, as well as young girls and young boys are now seeking refuge in some interior localities and in bushes. We could only see some living souls like animals, like this car that we can see here in Balangi that has simply been abandoned by its owners. We could equally see fowls here in Balangi. It is a chaotic atmosphere. This is the picture of Balangi few hours to the May 20th celebration in the southwest region of the country. For Equinoxe Television from Balangi, Mbonge Subdivision, Meme, southwest region of Cameroon, we are Amos Fongo, Eric Masianjomo, and Mimi Mefu.
Thanks, ladies and gentlemen, for staying with us. We are still with our guest, veteran journalist and member of the civil society, Elie Smith on my left, and of course ABDULKARIM Ali is a Muslim scholar of the Christian Bible and equally a member of the civil society. Elie Smith, what can you tell journalists in Cameroon today with regards to what is happening to Mimi Mefu and other journalists in the country? How should journalists go about their duties in this kind of difficult terrain?
Well, I don't have anything to say about Mimefo anymore because an opportunity has been given on a platter of gold for the world to know what Mimefo is. But the only advice if I could give to journalists now is a bit what to append to what Mr. Ali has just said is we now have to be careful. When you are reporting, for example, recently when I was doing something for the BBC at Lagos, they were telling us in a war situation in which we are right now, we should not give the opportunity for a regime that is ready to crack down on people, to crack on you. So we need to be very professional, and in things that we are saying, we should try to put it in conditional terms. We should not be very affirmative. We should try to double check the facts, but we should be able to give the fact, because it is not a time that we just, all right, okay, we're not going to write anything, we are going to become ETV, talked about Kardashian and other things, or go and follow a minister on the ground. The only thing we need to do is that be very careful, report accurately, but still the best thing is investigation. For example, when an investigation today in Cameroon is almost synonymous to a crime. Yes and no. Yes and no. I'll give you an example. an incident happened at PSS Nkwen. The official version was they are the Ambazonian who took the guys. Even Colonel Bajek told me, he's alive, he told me that it is the Ambazonian who did it because Eric Tato said it. Fine, right? That's good. But now, one investigative journalist, what he will do is that you go around PSS Nkwen and ask people, and ask this very simple or stupid question. When you go to PSS Nkwen, the walls are quite elevated, and there's another thing he said. They had info that the assailant or the kidnappers were there since 4 a.m. And the best question one can ask is this: you don't need to come out from MIT or Stanford. In the northwest, in Bamenda in particular, the place is flooded with all arms of the Cameroon security forces, dressed and undressed. I mean, those who are on plain cloth. How can you take away 82 people and nobody touches you or nobody sees you?
With a curfew. With
a curfew. You see what's happening. If you report like that, who will arrest you for that? Except the person except they are really very stupid. So my advice is that if we want to do reports right now, first of all, make an effort to have official sources as well. That is on military affair like this. Call Colonel Bajek and ask his version. And pay attention thoroughly when he speaks. Write it down, everything he says. And now you go and ask another person. Like Frundi said and made a statement. Ask Frundi, why did you say so? Frundi will say, I said this because of this and that. And you ask the women or the resident of the area. Rapidly, when you add them, you have the truth. So the thing is that we should make an effort to be accurate on what we are saying, and even if they arrest you, they are going to be ridiculed. Because in the case of Mimi, I don't want to set the cat out of the bag. In the case of Mimi, if I'm this government, I will call for an independent body to go and investigate who killed Westcott. They said it was a crossfire, but my very naive knowledge is this: the Ambazonians use Dane guns, and the cartridges have pellets inside. When it strikes the target, it scatters, and you have collateral damage or wounds around. Is that what happened with what happened to Mr. Westcott?
The American missionary?
Is that what happened? That's a great question. And why do you run amok? Because when you run amok and arrest Mimi because she quoted from somebody, you are already in a kind of manner ingeniously accusing yourself. So the only thing I will tell the journalists now is that, okay, just try to be more professional and be courageous. A good journalist is that journalist who is arrested, honestly speaking. Yeah. A good one.
And you said something which raises a lot of questions. These are two similar incidents. Over 80 students are kidnapped in PSS Nkwen, and then a journalist says they were kidnapped by the separatist fighters, and then the defense ministry spokesperson says they were kidnapped by the separatist fighters because the journalist said it. And then another incident happens, and another journalist says the person was probably killed by a bullet coming from a gun of the Cameroonian armed forces, according to the family sources. And then the person is not quoted as well, but arrested and thrown into jail.
It is a matter of double standard, and it also denotes that they were behind her for so long, and they were just looking for just the most flimsy of what they could consider as mistake to nail her down. Which is that is happening today, and I think which is what is happening. I think what we have to do as journalists, and it is true in that case. I'm telling you, Colonel Bajek is alive. I spoke with him, and I think it was around 12:59 p.m. So it is not invention or everything. He said it, and it's true. Eric Tato said such a thing. Eric Tato said they were the Ambazonians who took him. And they said it's based on that, because they believe that a journalist like that guy called Eric Tato is well introduced, he knows a lot of things. So, but why won't you arrest him? And in this case, but now in these other cases, I think the government made a blunder. A case is ongoing. If you run amok and arrest a reporter for that, it means that you have a problem. if you don't have a problem, you don't have to report yourself. So I think that what the government has to do to kind of atone this sin is first release Mefo, 1, 2, allow a free access to the press to go to the northwest and to go to the south. I've been telling to many people here that they used to tag me to be an Ambazonian. I went to Mweli. Why is that most journalists can also take their money and go to places and see what is going on? And when they go there and report, and let me tell the government of Cameroon one thing to conclude. Do you know why the Vietnam War ended? It's simply because the American government allowed the press to go there. And when the press went to Vietnam, they started reporting accurately on what is going on the ground in Vietnam. The American government's own narrative fell apart. You see, so if I were the government, why arrest me? If you are fighting against Ambazonians, if you call Ambazonian terrorists, allow the journalists themselves to say the Ambazonians are terrorists because they did this, they did this, they did that. You will not nourish the press, because that's what's happened to some of you journalists. You take everything that the government gives you, you write it, it becomes gospel truth. But if I were the government, if I want to win over the Ambazonians, I will say Southern Cameroon is wide open. All the press of Cameroon, go down in the northwest, go down in the southwest, report faithfully at what is happening. And now we're going to see between the Ambazonian security forces who are posing a threat to the government and the Cameroonian security forces, who are the criminals, who are the ones who are not obeying the rule of war. And then the Cameroonian people are going to judge it. But when you go and arrest a journalist because she has reported something, you have a problem. Sincerely speaking, I think this is the worst public relation blunder that the government of Cameroon has done. Biya has just been elected. He talked about peace. He talked about prosperity. He talked about unity. He talked about free speech. I heard that speech, that Cameroonians have the right to express themselves openly. Then you turn around the next day, you arrest a young lady for doing nothing, for just doing what she has to do. But I think it's a mistake the government done, and I did, and they have to correct it.
ABDULKARIM Ali, somebody asked me the question, being a journalist, has it become synonymous to being a criminal in Cameroon? And I want to put that question to you.
Being a Southern Cameroonian is a criminal. Being a Southern Cameroonian, you are a criminal. Reporting fact, you are a criminal. This goes to say that it's a dictatorship and a state of military. Look, just to chime in a little bit for journalists, the Quran says, "Fas'alu al-dhikri in kuntum la ta'lamun." Ask those who know about a matter if you don't know. In other words, if I want to know about journalism, I shouldn't go to a carpenter, I should come to Elie or you. And then the Quran says that if you are told something, check it up before you pass it over. And this is what Mimi did. And talking about the case with Eric Tato did a corregino with BBC. He came out clear to say, no, initially the report he had was this, but this he has had better report with more evidence. This is what journalists do, and the BBC applauded him. But the colonel had already taken it and said, Eric Tato said, therefore it is so. So we see the double standard applying, and I pray that God helps us.
ABDULKARIM Ali, Muslim scholar of the Christian Bible, a member of the civil society. Thanks so much for coming.
Thanks, it's my pleasure.
Elie Smith, veteran journalist and equally member of the civil society. Thanks so much for being our guest in this edition of the program.
Thank you for having me.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's it for this edition of The Inside. Thanks for staying with us. Goodbye.